My parents told me, we can't afford the beach house this year. 2 weeks later, I saw photos of them and my siblings in a private villa. Then they called me for help with their rental problem, but I had a surprise waiting for them. We just can't afford the beach house this year, Sarah. Times are tough. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, laden with what I now knew was fake concern. Your father's business isn't doing as well as we hoped. I sat in my Manhattan apartment, staring at the calendar where I'd already blocked off the last 2 weeks of July. Our family's traditional beach house vacation time for the past 25 years. The same vacation I'd already taken time off work for. The same one I'd been looking forward to all year. My name is Sarah, and at 32, I was about to discover just how deeply family betrayal could cut. Are you sure? I asked, trying to keep the disappointment from my voice. I could help with the costs. I know how much this tradition means to everyone, especially to me. I thought, remembering all the summers spent at our Hamptons beach house, the memories stretching back to when I was just a little girl building sandcastles with my siblings. Oh honey, no, Mom replied quickly. We couldn't possibly take your money. It's better if we all just skip it this year. Your brother Michael and Emma have already agreed. It's for the best. I should have caught the slight hesitation in her voice when she mentioned my siblings. Should have noticed how she rushed through their names. But I was too busy trying to process the loss of our annual family gathering. Right, I said finally. Well, maybe we can plan something smaller later in the year. Of course, darling. Listen, I have to run. Your father needs me to help him with some paperwork. We'll talk soon. The call ended abruptly, leaving me with a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. I brushed it off, attributing it to my general disappointment. After all, what other explanation could there be? 2 weeks later, I found out exactly what other explanation there could be. I was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break when I saw it, a photo posted by my younger sister, Emma. My sandwich fell from my suddenly numb fingers as I stared at the image, my entire family lounging on our beach house deck, drinks in hand, a golden sunset behind them. The caption read, "Perfect start to our annual family vacation. Family time the sunset." The timestamp showed it had been posted just hours ago. They hadn't canceled the trip. They had just canceled me. My hands shook as I scrolled through more photos. There was Michael manning the grill, Dad opening a bottle of champagne, Mom arranging her signature seashell centerpiece on the outdoor dining table. Another post from Michael, nothing better than tradition. Annual family beach vacation in full swing. The word family felt like a slap across my face. I sat there, my untouched lunch growing warm, as years of subtle exclusions and dismissals suddenly clicked into place. The forgotten invitations to weekend brunches, the family dinners I heard about, after the fact, the group photos where everyone seemed to know about the color coordination. Except me. But this was different. This was our beach house tradition, the one thing I thought was sacred. The beach house had been in our family since before I was born. My grandfather bought it as a surprise for my grandmother in 1965, and it had been our summer gathering place ever since. I learned to swim in that ocean, had my first kiss under that boardwalk, and celebrated every major milestone with family dinners on that deck. I pulled up my mother's number, then stopped. What would confronting them accomplish? They had already shown me exactly where I stood on their priority list. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching through old emails. There had to be a reason they felt so confident in excluding me, and I was going to find it. 3 hours later, I had my answer, and it made my blood run cold. Last year, when the family trust was being restructured after Grandpa's death, I'd signed a stack of papers Dad had brought to my office. Just routine stuff, he'd said. Making sure everything's properly organized for tax purposes. I trusted him, why wouldn't I? He was my father, a successful real estate developer who'd always handled the family's financial matters. So I'd signed where he pointed, not bothering to read the fine print. Now, looking at the copy I finally dug out of my files, I realized what I'd actually signed, a document transferring my share of the beach house ownership to a family LLC controlled by my parents. My hands clenched around the paper. They had planned this, probably for months, get me to sign away my rights, then slowly edge me out of family gatherings, until I was nothing more than a distant relative they had to tolerate at major holidays. But they had made one crucial mistake. Before my grandfather passed away, he pulled me aside during his last Christmas with us. "Sarah," he said, his voice weak but his eyes sharp as ever, "I've left something for you with Harold. Promise me you'll go see him if anything feels wrong with the family." Harold Mason was my grandfather's lawyer, and, more importantly, his closest friend. I dismissed the conversation at the time, assuming it was just the ramblings of a dying man. Now, I wondered what exactly my grandfather had seen coming. I called Harold's office immediately. "Sarah Mitchell for Harold Mason," I said when his secretary answered. "Tell him it's about my grandfather's final instructions." Minutes later, Harold's familiar gravelly voice came through the line. "Sarah, I've been wondering when you'd call. Your grandfather was a smart man. He knew exactly how things would play out once he was gone. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m.? I glanced at my calendar, already reaching for my laptop to clear my schedule. I'll be there. That night, I barely slept. My phone kept buzzing with more family photos from the beach house, sunset walks, seafood dinners, game nights. Each notification felt like another twist of the knife. I turned my phone face down, but I couldn't turn off my thoughts quite so easily. The next morning, I arrived at Harold's office precisely at 9 a.m. The office looked exactly as I remembered from childhood visits with my grandfather. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound law books lining the walls, and that same familiar scent of coffee and old paper. Harold stood as I entered, his tall frame slightly stooped now with age, but his blue eyes as sharp as ever. Sarah, he said warmly, you look just like your grandmother. He gestured for me to sit, then walked to his safe. Your grandfather left this for you, he said, returning with a thick envelope, along with very specific instructions about when to give it to you. I took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a letter written in my grandfather's distinctive scrawl, along with several legal documents. My dearest Sarah, the letter began, if you're reading this, then what I feared has come to pass. Your father has always been ambitious, and your mother too easily swayed by his dreams of legacy and status. I've watched them slowly put aside anyone who doesn't fit their perfect family image, just as they did with your Aunt Claire years ago. I remembered Aunt Claire vaguely, Mom's sister, who had chosen to distance herself from the family when I was young. I'd always accepted the family's version of events, that Claire had abandoned us. Now, I wondered if there was another side to that story. But I've made provisions, the letter continued. The beach house isn't just a property, it's the heart of our family's memories. While your father may think he's cleverly consolidated control, he's overlooked something important. Check the original deed from 1965. Harold handed me another document, the original property deed. As I read through it, my eyes widened. The beach house property, Harold explained, includes not just the house but also the private road leading to it and the small boat dock. Your grandfather never merged these parcels when he bought them. And while your father may have maneuvered to get control of the house itself, the road and dock are still under the original trust. I finished, understanding dawning. A trust that, according to these papers, now belongs to me. Harold smiled. Exactly. Without access to the private road, the beach house is essentially landlocked. The public access road is 2 miles down the coast, and the neighboring properties have repeatedly blocked any attempts to create a new access point. I sat back, my mind racing. So they need my permission just to reach the house. Indeed, Harold said. Your grandfather believed that sometimes people need to be reminded of the importance of family, all family members, not just the convenient ones. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another Instagram notification. Emma had posted again, another perfect day in paradise, family forever. I looked at Harold, a plan already forming in my mind. I think it's time for my family to learn a lesson about the true meaning of family. Now comment update to tag you on part 2.